No, not Visual Studio. That icon looks very similar.
Hey, you let they go in the background. Well, it says you can hear things, so... Hey.
Hello?
That looks like it might be working.
Let's see. Am I muted? There's some amount of stuff going through here.
Said you can hear people.
Look at that. Alright, excellent.
Thanks, Mally.
Visual Studio, go away. I don't want you. Get...
Just close it.
There. Well, the close button wasn't working.
Because I could tell you when stuff is.
Alright. Hello, everyone. So, welcome to our 289th stream of Stonehearth. Holy...
There should be something special for, like,
holy poop.
11 from now.
Yeah, this is, well, you know, that's a very decimal-centric view on numbering.
That's true. That's true.
All right. So, welcome everyone. I am Richard Huff. I'm the lead designer on Stonehearth. To my right is Luke. He is new designer that joined our team just recently. For those of you that watched last week's stream, he was starring there.
Well, I was co-starring, but
Co-starring?
I did talk a lot.
Oh, fair enough. Well, that is something as designers we tend to do a lot.
Unless you stop us, basically.
As you will probably see today. So, thank you for everyone that is here watching. Today, I thought that we would do something similar to what I did last time I streamed with you guys, which is to work through some of the design docs that we're doing right now. As always, the stuff is up in the air and subject to change, but I thought something that might be really interesting for you guys is to have Luke here as well. This will be his first time seeing this design doc that I wrote, and he's probably going to tear it apart. So it might be a great opportunity for you guys to see also how like two designers talk and ideate and talk through the game as well.
It's going to be real no-holds-barred game design.
Yeah, and then...
lots of editing, Confluence
so
documents,
much.
and nitpicking on verbiage.
the clicker clack will be heard from
so
miles.
exciting.
Yeah. All right. So, you know, what help if I go to edit.
No, Micro, I cannot take credit for the Poyo.
No, the Poyo was.
There's a future thing that I hope to put in the game I can take credit for that's Poyo related, but I cannot. I don't want to spoil that.
Oh.
The ice version.
Oh yes. Okay. I'm looking forward to that. That will be great. All right. Well, give some context on what's going on right now. So, with Luke now joining the team, we're able to do some more heavy lifting inside of the game itself. And one of the things that we're focusing on right now is to try and create meaning behind everything that exists inside of Stonehearth. So, at the moment, we got all these like neat decorations, and you can put like lamps and dressers and all this other cool stuff inside of your homes and buildings, and you can create little benches and all this other stuff. But a lot of it doesn't actually do anything except for kind of look nice. And we want to create some more purpose behind that type of decoration. So when players spend time focusing on like getting things just aligned right, or like creating the most thematic like carpenter's shop that they can, that you're rewarded mechanically in the game for doing that. And there's a bunch of different systems that we're looking at right now to accomplish that goal. We're re-looking at armor, weapons, damage, healing, all sorts of things. But what I want to share with you guys right now is a baseline system for creating a concept of appeal inside of the game. Something that all decorative objects, and actually probably all objects that you can place with the item picker would have. And this is a low-level kind of catch-all system that we can apply to everything when we don't have the time or resources to create a more specific interaction. Like a unique animation for playing cards at the table or something else like that.
Yeah, and it's not even necessarily we don't have time or resources. It's like, we don't want to say, if you don't have curtains in every room, then the sun comes in and the Hearthlings can't sleep and it's terrible and like you lose the game. But we don't want to. Right now, you put curtains in a room. Well, not curtains, but right now you put curtains in a room. They wouldn't do anything. They'd look nice. You can put a screenshot. But if you're not the kind of player that's super excited about just decorating for decoration's sake, you probably don't ever build that item. You just sort of build the like minimum little like hut you need to build for your guys not to be sad, and just kind of move on. So I view this appeal work as sort of trying to take there's two kinds of players: the ones that are playing the game for the mechanics and wanting to win, and the players who play the game for the sort of Lego style building experience. And a system like Appeal lets the creative Lego style builders get rewarded by having happy Hearthlings that actually kind of notice the things, all the effort they've put into having everybody have nice silver tables in their rooms and all that stuff, and also make the players who are really more interested in just like winning the game, playing the game the best they can, actually kind of being like, hey, hint, hint, you should make a nice looking town, and then I think that'll make both players more happy.
So diving into it, as I said, this is the first time Luke's seen this stock, though we've talked some broadly about it beforehand. So, as I said, this is like my third iteration on the stock, so there's probably stuff that we talked about in the past that's currently left out of the design, and we should talk about that as you're like, oh, why aren't you doing this? Yeah. So, at a base level, all items in the game I'm proposing have an appeal score, and the value is specific to that entity. And is static over the course of the game. The appeal score is an integer, can be negative, 0, or positive. And broadly speaking, from a design side, all objects should have a positive appeal rating, except for in a few cases. So if there's work that represents incomplete work, so like stuff strewn about on the ground and you're like swimming in stone blocks, probably shouldn't be too appealing to do that. If something is fundamentally wrong, so right now rotten food would come into that. If we did like rubble or burned structures or something else that would fit into that.
Anything that smells bad or like looks really ugly or things like that.
Tombstones, that sort of thing. Well, I guess actually the third one.
I could argue about tombstones.
Yeah, but thirdly, like if it doesn't make thematic sense for you to look at something, and
in a darker game like unburied bodies, but that's not really the kind of game that Stonehearth is. So.
Before I answer Haminsu's question, let me go to the next bit of this. So, objects have this base appeal, and on top of that, there's the perceived appeal. So basically, how does that object perceived by the Hearthling itself? And so there are mods that can stack on top of that base appeal. The core ones are the quality descriptions. I duplicated this.
Stealing my design docs. Oh, I see.
So fine, excellent, masterwork, just makes things look better at a base level. Mm-hmm. And then disliked item, which I'll talk about likes and dislikes. If you dislike something, it just brings you no appeal at all.
You just don't want to look at it.
You don't want to look at it. I didn't think it was appropriate to make something that you dislike negative, but I thought having it be like, I don't like this, so it doesn't improve my experience at all, was a reasonable middle ground. Yeah. Zisco, stockpiles by itself. Be considered as not appealing since it gives a sense of clutter. So the idea there, Zisco, is that most of the things that would be in a stockpile, so resources like wood, stone, iconics, would probably have a negative appeal in the iconic form or in the base resource form.
Yeah, I wouldn't attach the negative appeal to like the stockpile, like the blue square in the ground, but it would be that, hey, whenever there's a bunch of stuff on the ground, it's bad, and stockpiles cause that to happen.
Yeah, and then that means like, if you actually go through the effort of creating storage beyond stockpiles, which requires additional effort like boxes and other things, then that gets it a little bit out of sight and makes it better holistically as a result.
Yep. And this appeal system is meant to be a catch-all for everything, but when we can apply it to apply sort of pressure to the player to be like, hey, you should organize your city, that's good.
Yep.
And to Nitsu's thing about tombstones, I think there's a good argument for tombstones being positive or positive appeal, things like that. So.
There might be something where we'll get to likes and dislikes in a bit, but there could be something where if we wanted to, we could incorporate some of these items that normally as negatives as likes. And so this person could like tombstones.
I love rotten food.
I love rotten food. Just rub it on my face.
Yeah, that's kind of weird. But
we could.
Yeah, but I mean, I could see that could be that's a funny quirk though.
Yeah. Well, we could create a trait specifically.
That's true. Or it could be, if we extend this to like goblins or whatever, they could just have like a different. I'm not sure why goblin happiness would be a thing we'd care about, but like it could be kind of.
Gotta make those goblins happy.
Yeah.
But I kind of like the. So I kind of like tombstones being naturally negative, but not like strongly negative. Just so you like, someone dies in the middle of the town, you don't just leave their tombstone in the middle of the town. You put it like somewhere a little bit more out of the way. Mm-hmm. But if we had a trait specifically for, I don't know, like goth or something else, right? It's like, oh yeah, tombstones are the best, and decorate my house with tombstones. Oh, by the way, you can only get tombstones by killing your town members. Oh.
That's kind of dark. And I think another thing that could be like, there's nuance here where it's like, hey, maybe tombstones are somewhat negative appeal, but visiting a tombstone has a positive happiness, like, you know, grieving, like, is this positive, like, let out my grief is a positive, happy thought, so they kind of balance out, and then maybe you actually want to have a nice mausoleum in the middle of your city for some important Hearthling, because it's going to be net positive, and then you decorate it with all these other decorative items that, in aggregate, bring it positive again.
Yeah, there's
But you just don't want to have a giant row of tombstones in the middle of your like town, like Wild West.
It's kind of a weird.
Awfulness.
It's kind of a weird place because the tombstones get generated automatically right now. Like, in a world where you could, like, the corpses were still around, which is not what we're going to do, but one could imagine, like, oh, the corpses are negative, you put them in a gravestone, that mitigates it, but then you can put a tombstone, and the tombstone can only be placed on a grave, and that in turn makes the grave, like, net positive, because, like, oh.
And then maybe there's, like, a max level mason can make a, like, really nice
sarcophagus.
Gravestone or something that's, like, a super, like, awesome angels carving or something, and then you have someone looking at it the whole time. But yeah, so this, again, appeal isn't a catch-all. It doesn't mean, it's not like every impact that an item can have is through the appeal system. There's lots of other interactions that could happen. And it's not meant to be a value judgment either, necessarily, on the item. Like, this system was called beauty when we were first talking about it, and that's led to a lot of side discussions about, but, like, what is beauty? And it's sort of like, we're not trying to pass a, like, value judgment that, like, oh man, tombstones are ugly. Tombstones are just not
appealing.
Yeah, they just don't.
They bring it down.
This slightly game mechanical thing of like, do we want the player to build a lot of these and put them around their town? Yeah, tombstones probably aren't on that list.
So I'm open to fiddling with that, but conceptually, for all the reasons you just said, that's why I was like, oh, tombstones probably have a negative appeal, and you want to move them out of your town proper.
Yeah. Or spend effort to make the area around them look nicer.
Exactly, yeah. Okay, so this gets a little technical. Bullet points. But I'm trying to describe a bit about how we might get this. So, basically, I'm proposing that Hearthlings evaluate their environment and to get an appeal rating. And the idea of this is that they basically do some sort of radial limited line of sight check. That check is cylindrical, not spherical, so you don't end up with like, oh, because there's a lamp directly above me, I'm happy, but because it's like this other one that's 2 pixels away, that doesn't seem cool. The things that I'm proposing would potentially affect mood would be explicit entities, but also potentially the wall or floor voxels themselves. Haven't fleshed out the design around that yet strongly, but one could consider like different flooring types, a painter, or like something else that you could do to make just the general atmosphere of the space be better. One of the things that I wanted to tie into this was like, if you build a home with the new construction tool and you forget to put a floor down, like you probably should be less happy than if you actually put a floor down.
Yeah, or choose not to because like having a roof over a Hearthling's head is better, but like floors are expensive or something. Like that makes sense.
The items have to be visible to have an impact, so I can't. The goal basically here is I don't want something that's on another side of the wall from me making me happy. Engineering wise, it doesn't need to be a one-for-one like raycast line of sight check. It can be rougher than that, but that broader goal kind of needs to be there.
Yeah.
I ended up after our conversation going with an average approach. So basically we take all the items, we divide it, we sum up their appeal score we divide it by a constant denominator, which probably numerically coincides with the number of spaces that we're evaluating in our check. And that denominator is constant regardless of whether or not like you're in a super small room or like in a really big room.
Yeah. Otherwise, weird stuff starts to happen.
That statue that's in the 1 pixel wide room is like awe-inspiring because you're dividing it by 1.
Yeah.
And then the last bullet point, which I haven't quite gone to yet, is so I want Hearthlings to have preferences, things they love, things they like, and things they dislike. Initially, I'd set it up where things that they like and love affect the value of that individual item. But after thinking about it some, I didn't think it'd be great to set up a situation where, because hey, I know you like high back chairs, so since all high back chairs are 50% like better for you, your room's just full of high back chairs like all over the place. So I walked it back a little bit and was like, yeah, let's actually just give you a benefit if the thing that you like or love is in this query as a whole. So it doesn't matter if there's 1 of them or if there's 20 of them, but just by being there, you feel better about the space.
Okay. So I know you walked back from like is item fatigue not a concept here? Oh man, I forgot about the music. Dang.
So I can't get it to a 2. I just need to get to a 1. Music's gone. We're done with music.
Yeah, the Windows volume mixer might be better because you can do it per. No, open the mixer. You can actually do it per application. Nope. Right click, play mixer. There you go. So you can change Windows Media Player's volume specifically.
You mean how it's already down here?
It's already down to like, oh man.
It's already super low. There is one other option. Hold on. There's another option. Hold on.
Oh no.
Yeah, I'm gonna do it. Okay. All right. Watch your speakers.
I think you can type in to the thing next to it.
What? Yeah, I can. I'm just gonna put 100.
Oh, okay. Hey guys.
Hi. Don't be deaf.
Please don't.
Don't be deaf.
Okay. No.
Okay. Now turn back music on.
5 is way too high.
5 is way too high. Okay. Music's back. You'll have to turn down your local thing, but
okay.
That should work. Playing live.
It's amazing because we don't hear any of this.
I mean, we don't have headphones on.
We're just here in a room, and so like
maybe. So we've either deafened our audience or we've made it better.
We just started it again? Question mark. Claims it's going.
It claims it's doing things.
That's loud. You are only slightly
louder. Okay. Rip.
Oh. Well, okay. Blue heavens are way over there.
Rip.
I don't know.
Okay. I'm gonna leave the recorder change, and then we'll just go.
I imagine there's a YouTube playlist of the Stonehearth music that you could just go start if you want to.
All right. So yeah, that was my theory on the.
I'm a little sad that they're not like mechanically liking the object a lot, but depending on how we surface this information to players, I don't know if it matters. Would multiple. So it is if anything they like.
If anything you like is there. If anything you love, and we could change it so that like because there are multiple things that you're going to like and love.
Yeah.
So we could do it additively.
Yeah, but
then like
why are duplicates different from?
Well, I mean that kind of makes sense,
Unique
right? Like,
things.
oh, I like all this stuff. Oh, this room is full of like an eclectic set of things.
Mm-hmm. And also, if it's down to liking a particular material or something.
So at the moment, and spoilers because we're about to scroll down to it, I said after looking through the objects that are in the game and thinking through it more, I actually went with a specific object approach, like in Stardew Valley, as opposed to a like broader sweeping. I like chairs.
That's true, because there isn't a big enough variety outside of a couple of item types.
And we might be able to change that in the future, but at the moment.
Not totally convinced on that piece of this, but let's move on and like read through more, because this is sort of neither here nor there in terms of the wider system.
Sure. All right. So based on our conversation 2 days ago, I went with creating a overtime impression for appeal in the same way that we kind of have with happiness. So you're calculating your area. That's giving you your like target appeal feeling for like, hey, this space looks really nice. That is pushing an internal meter of kind of like what your aggregate feel is of how beautiful the areas that you've been walking through for the day are. So it takes a little bit of time for that aggregate to catch up or be moved. So like if you end up walking through a hallway full of rotten food, like you'll be super, instead of like being bipolar of like, oh, this place is great. Oh, this is the most horrible place.
And you walk through a hallway, I feel terrible. Yeah.
Oh, I feel great. Doing it so like, yeah, that will pull you down, but it's like mediated by how long you spent in said hallway of rotten food. And then the speed that that aggregate moves is related to how big the delta is. As opposed to being a linear scaling thing. So if you do end up going through that hall of rotten food, it does have a bigger impact than just walking through a hallway of like nothing.
Interesting. And that applies to both the gorgeous end and the terrible end?
Yeah, so it beats both ways.
Are either of those exposed in the UI to the player?
So yes, and in probably a similar way to how the happiness is right now. So you've got the arrow for where you actually care about, and then either pressure arrows or like a target that is reflective.
Yeah, because I do think something where you can click on a Hearthling and sort of see like either their immediate opinion or their like last couple of checks aggregated together opinion of like, hey, they're in their bedroom. What do they think about their bedroom? Would be a useful tool for players to sort of look at the system and understand it.
Yeah, so I need to talk to Nikki about the visualization side of it, but I do kind of like the idea of like, oh, you could like click on a space or something else and see like, oh, if there's here, this is how beautiful this space is.
Sure. I guess the difference being it is more easily used to have a like overlay where you see like a heat map of attractiveness, but extremely gamey. Like it's very obviously a video game thing, whereas being able to sort of click on a Hearthling who's walking somewhere, like pause the game, click on them, and have them tell you what they think, is the same information, harder to query a specific spot, but much more like organic. Like,
I'm not opposed to either direction. I'd leave that as a decision for Nikki, and we could do some evaluation.
That's fair. But either way, you can see here's what the immediate happiness score for this area is or would be, and then you can also see what this person's current.
Yeah, I mean,
how much their happiness is being impacted by the stuff they've seen.
Broadly speaking, I want to bubble up more information in the game as opposed to hide it. So even if in this particular case, I agree with you that it's like less diegetic to have.
Good.
Yeah, I know.
It's a good design word.
That has a good design word. To have an overlay, like I do, like the ease of access to the information, and the other thing is kind of like Oxygen Not Included has like a heat map for decor. Yeah, it's ugly, but I think it's
the game is like half overlays though, and I think it detracts. So
yeah, I think that's fair. We can figure it out.
Actually,
things
another idea actually from who was this? Punkema. sorry, jumping back again, sorry, to the saw something I liked or loved, you could actually separate the two things, where it is seeing a thing that you loved gives you a happy thought. So rather than changing your appeal score, it actually directly impacts your happiness, because that's where appeal ends up anyway. So that it separates it doesn't, things you like or love actually don't impact your appeal, but they do impact your happiness.
I thought about that, and one of the initial designs I had did that. I didn't like the implication on disliking stuff. Like, I didn't want to make it so that you saw something and now you had a negative thought on your happiness.
That's true.
It felt better for, like, yeah, it's just like this particular thing, like, I don't get any benefit from it in the appeal score. And so treating things you disliked differently than liked and loved, and in the terms of, like, different systems, is why I brought that together.
I guess if we're going to bother having dislikes, I kind of do want them to be negative, because if it's just, I don't know, like they actually should be, I have to think about not having this guy run across these things.
I'm not opposed to the idea of adding, like, I hate this stuff, but that seemed like thematically too far.
Yeah, like just causing one item to not have, or whatever, like one item in a room to not have an appeal score seems really hard to notice.
It depends on the things, but you may be right. Like, alternatively, maybe disliking is, like, if like and love are changes to the aggregate, disliking could also be a change to the aggregate. One of the other reasons I liked having like and love affect the score as opposed to being a thought is because then you actually start to get divergence in opinion between Hearthlings on a particular area, which feeds back into their personalities. Like, oh, this particular Hearthling thinks this place is beautiful. Okay. This other one is like, it's okay. But, you know, there might be a different way to apply, like, disliking.
That's true. And especially, I guess we could probably even, like, highlight their like and dislike if it's being applied at this moment. So it's like, I love this room, and it's like...
Yeah, no, I think you need...
Super digs, like, mean beds. Yeah. And it's like, okay, and then you click on somebody else and it doesn't... Yeah, so that maybe, I guess we could
I think we absolutely, with this approach, need to surface, like, hey, there's something that they like here, and there's something that they dislike. And that would need to be shown in wherever we end up visualizing this type of display so they understand it and it's pulled forward. But yeah, I think I like kind of that idea of like two people in a room and they have different opinions on the room because of the things they like and dislike.
Hearthlings hit the like button. Hearthlings always like and subscribe.
Always. Hit that bell. Hit that bell. Yeah, Hemisu. Hate is also a bit too much for me. That's why I like dislike and didn't put hate in. But, yeah, that doesn't mean disliking couldn't end up being a negative impact as opposed to like what it is right now.
And I do think that, like, having Hearthling... I mean, Stonehearth is very much a happy, positive game, but I do think having somebody who's grumpy and, like, hates a certain thing, and so you have to, like... Well, he hates granite tables, and my, like, grand design for my dining room is all granite tables, so I just have to give him, like, a room full of, like, stuffed bunnies so that he, like, chills out when he goes back to his room. Like, that's like stories to me. Yeah. That's like where things come. That's an interesting little challenge, and it's not like a big mob of goblins attacking you. It's much more in line with, like, I'm building a city with these
individuals, right?
I'm trying to build a cute little city, and these people that live in it are causing me trouble, and I have to, like, do all these things to get them to stay happy so they can help me build the city.
So continuing forward, we need some qualifiers for what different things are. These numbers, like, who knows what the numbers are?
Yeah, because you don't know what the numbers are
for
the in the first place.
Are, right? But, like, if we're averaging that probably, and a lot of the space is 0, it does probably mean that we'll end up with numbers that are closer to plus 10, minus 10 for the evaluation, even though we might have particular objects that's like plus 50, plus 60 or something else.
The relative scale here is what matters, that, like, the high end is twice as far away from the middle as the low end is. Yeah. Probably just because we don't have that much opportunity to get into the low end.
Yeah, we want to try and stay away from that, I think.
Oh wait, sorry, keep going. The next chart is what was my question? So.
Okay. Based on your current appeal stuff, it should feed back into your happiness. Um,
Okay, so I see that if you go negative, it like pretty sharply. It's sharper much quicker than going positive, because like the plus 12 is breathtaking, which is 6 plus, and then minus and 5 minus is negative 15.
and that's because there are fewer negative things inside the game, and they more represent things that are going wrong or unresolved.
That's true, and I guess this steady state is probably going to be like 1 or 2 if it's just like, hey, it's like a bunch of wooden chairs. Like you're gonna have some amount of appeal there anyway. So okay.
You have to invest into like high back chairs and like bigger tables and things more than just stools and
but I'm saying even with the most basic set of just things in the game, like you're going to be above 0. Because
probably
0 is nothing's around, and then as soon as you have anything that isn't like rotting food, you're going to be positive. So
whims, where people like or dislike something at random for some time. Maybe. Let me get back to that question as we get a little further. Okay, so preferences. So arbitrary numbers.
There's a lot of them, though.
There are like 300 or so items in the game.
All right.
And this number is tunable, but basically it's like, they have some subset of things they love, a larger subset of things that they like, and a similar size subset of things that they dislike.
I guess my reaction to those numbers being big comes from, I feel like a smaller set of numbers would give stronger identity to Hearthlings. Like, this is the Hearthling that loves, like, specifically this, like loves turnips. And it's not because if it's 3 things and it's like, oh, there's turnips and stuffed rabbits and mason workbenches, and like that's not nearly as much of an identity as the guy who just loves mason workbenches. But I don't know, because
that's a fair point. So let's think through that. Let me ask you, hold that thought until we get through all the preferences stuff, and then let's circle back about on that.
This is the thought.
That's the thought. It's being held. So for the moment, things they love, like, dislike, should be things that can be placed. Along with the select few world spawn items. Reason for that is that if we create attachment to weapons, consumables, or armor, then we start creating weird questions around upgrade paths, where it's like, hey, this... I just don't want to get into a place, as I said this last sentence, where it's like, I can choose between this Hearthling being happy or doing more damage.
It's also possible that we could find a middle ground, because I know you said you didn't like materials being a thing that people like, because it's like not...
We might be able to figure out a way for that work.
But it could be that a lot of things are specific objects, but also like swords, like one-handed weapons is like this guy's love, and that's like, that way he can be a footman. He can be a footman, but not an archer. I guess it counts as a whatever it is. This guy loves swords and hates shields, or like loves shields. That would like steer you towards an upgrade path, but not like...
As long as that upgrade path is like an explicit path, I would be fine with that. Right now, though, it's not quite structured like that, because like you go from like swords to mauls, and then like...
Oh, that's true. Yeah. Like weapons or shields or something like that could be something where it's like, well, this guy has better stats, but this guy's gonna be happy when I give him a cool sword. Like, that seems like an interesting choice to make, but I can also see that this is like things you build your town with, and not like objects that you acquire.
Yeah.
I love goblin fireplaces. They're so green. His house is just like way over there.
It's. There is something around creating attachment to particular items that the Hearthling equips and uses. I don't know if the appeal system is a way for that. What I might end up doing is, like, especially when if we end up going with some of the stuff you're working on with crafting, with like masterworks, right? Like those masterworks could be made for a specific person, and then like, oh, like I'm wearing like my heirloom armor sets.
Yeah,
right?
and it's got a high appeal score, but to that guy, it's got a massive appeal, like ridiculous appeal score. Yeah, I can see that. By the way, side note, we should when someone has the cultist trait, they
Yeah.
should have either explicitly or secretly a love of bunny statues, so that you like build all their houses over near the bunny
Well,
statue.
we've added some gameplay around that.
I don't even know that.
Yeah, I know.
Ooh,
Well,
does
who
anybody
knows?
know that?
Who knows?
Ooh.
Let's continue and ignore that particular statement.
But yeah, like world spawn items is interesting because like, hey, does that like change the shape of your town or where you decide to put it?
Yeah. So the stuff like the Beowulf was just talking about. It's like, yeah, I got a Hearthling with decent combat stats, but he happens to hate swords and armor.
Yeah, but I mean, that's interesting. Like, I don't know, like these systems aren't. That's an interesting decision to make, right? Like, if you got a guy who had awesome stats and loved swords and weapons, it's like that's obvious. But as soon as it's like, well, but like which of these two guys should I make a footman? Like. That's an interesting choice to make. That's where the game is a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Maybe you make him a cleric.
I don't disagree, but looking at some of the like when we did the trait stuff, and we're like, hey, this person has a passion for this particular job. It didn't quite work exactly as I hoped it would. It was since it's not like they're unhappy because they're not being their job, like it was fine for the game and so it's in there, but like even inside of our team people are like, oh man, this person like really wants to be a carpenter and their stats aren't that great for it, and so I feel kind of bad making them a carpenter, but it's what they need to do to make them happy, so I guess I'll do that. Like,
yeah, that's fair. You don't want to disappoint your heart.
People felt like they were yeah, and that's the thing, like, especially for people that are emotionally attached to their Hearthlings, like, sometimes doing what makes them happy against gameplay reasons is a valid choice to make, but that's a tension that I think we explored a little bit there, and I don't necessarily know if I want to explore that space again.
That's fair. Yeah. That also goes towards your, like, dislike doesn't cause them to hate the thing, it's just they don't get appeal bonus.
I mean, I'm also fine with it having you hate it. Micro Lost, I completely agree.
Yes.
Stats and what they do, how, why, must fix. It is frustrating. Luke and I have actually been talking about that off and on since he joined the team.
Yes,
so
it's on my radar. I've done some investigation into it, and it's all over the place.
But broadly, like, just. We don't have a design there yet, but so you guys are aware, our goal is to make all stats relevant to all classes in some way, whether or not that is directly relevant to their job or just relevant in the broader sense of being a Hearthling. I think that is an important thing to do. It kind of sucks right now that there are certain classes that like have dump stats, and I don't think that's good for the game as a whole. All right, so. You're still holding that thought. So we need to display the preferences that Hearthlings have. My theory here is we actually like slow roll these preferences over the course of the game. So we actually like start off displaying like a couple of things that like maybe one thing they love and one thing that they like, but the rest of the stuff is like hidden in the menu and obviously hidden. Like it's just like. It's fuzzed out.
Question marks. Yeah,
question marks or something else. And then once a Hearthling interacts with, has a conversation about, or evaluates the appeal of one of those items, then it appears in that list. And with some call-outs specifically around like, oh, like, hey, I found something new I liked. And you click on it, you're like, oh, he really likes this.
Gets a thought bubble of like, oh.
Because a worry that I had if we didn't do the slow... Well, one, I think the slower approach is interesting because then there's like a little bit of mystery around the Hearthlings as you're going through and like, why is this guy like, this guy likes something, like, what does he like? I need to figure it out. But
he's like, I like something, but I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I don't know what it is,
but it's like on the tip of my tongue though. I've never seen it before, but I know I like it.
But the other thing that it helps us deal with is that we're creating these preferences right now at the creation of a Hearthling, which is going to be from the full set of objects that you can create inside of the game. So if we give that creation aspect, and then you end up with a Hearthling that only loves like late game stuff, you're going to open that and like get no benefit from it whatsoever. If we do a slow roll thing of like, well, okay, so I see that he loves like a late game item, but there's a lot of stuff that he doesn't know. Maybe I can figure that out, and you like check it back later. Even if he still ended up as a Hearthling, only still liking and loving late game stuff. Like it's not as upfront frustrating, if that makes sense, because that Skinner box of like, oh, maybe if I like play around and massage things, I can get more info.
Yeah, I don't love it because it seems like that the player, like we're incentivizing the player to just build one of everything, just to sort of like litmus test all of his like just parade. Like I'm gonna make one of everything that the carpenter can make, and then parade my Hearthlings next to it, and like see who pops up with the thing they like. That's weird. Like. I hear what you're saying about late game stuff. Maybe we should just weight the averages to like, just based purely on gold cost, because gold cost tends to be pretty like. So you tend to roll in this part of the gold cost spectrum, and then this part, and then this part, and then.
I mean, like, I still like this idea of like, hey, I don't know everything about my Hearthling, and they're figuring stuff out about themselves and evolving as they play the game as well, which just starts to have some presentation of. There are different ways that we can mend this. So, like, yeah, maybe if they find something, they get an opinion about it. But maybe also, like, there's a chance every time they wake up, they're like, hey, I had a dream. I had a dream about this. Like, oh, man, I really love it. Or, we go further and we're like, no, let's not generate this on setup. Let's actually get tighter about our design. And so, like, we only generate something they love, and then via, like, small chances that can happen via conversation or interaction is something they can develop something they like and love, which presentation wise accomplishes the same goal, but might weight things like very early in the game as opposed to later in the game.
Yeah, if it's a like chance per item, that's the same system, just like less clear. If it's a chance per interaction, everybody will just end up like super loving turnips because there's just turnips everywhere.
Turnips, right? Gotta have those turnips.
Like because they've seen turnips 1,000 times and they just find, like, fine, I guess I like turnips. So that's all. I mean, I think having the Hearthlings have like either essentially having them have fixed likes and dislikes from the start is probably the better one, like this clearer version of it. I'm just not sure if I kind of I like being able to see what they like off in the future, like as like little goals, like, oh man, 4 of my guys really like ivory things, and like I'll need to like trade with this weird ivory trader that we added to the game that trades ivory to like get them happy, and that's a goal I can have in mind. And I think the part that's missing if somebody is just like, I like gold armor and gold swords, and it's like, like I love everything that's gold, is that there needs to be a like better reward for them getting that stuff, which percentage bonus on top of appeal would do. But it's like, man, when I get those things, that guy is going to be so happy. As opposed to simply like if it was a checkbox, it's like, if they see it's +1 happiness for everything they see during a day. Checkbox, checkbox, checkbox. So as long as the risk reward is balanced out, or the effort reward is balanced out, I think I'd be okay with that. Even more so if we could somehow tie that to their personality in some way. Because if it's like the guy is like arrogant and something else, and he loves all this gold stuff, that's more of a story. Like, that's a character, as opposed to just feeling like I got randomly screwed.
Yeah, but on the flip side, we also want to be careful that we don't make like all arrogant individuals love gold stuff.
That's true. It's just, it would be waiting, right? Yeah. It would be...
Emergent interactions are valuable.
I think doing some massaging to try and distribute their likes across the spectrum of possible, like, items and gold costs is smart. It would work, and, like, having different, like, if they're very aesthetic, it just, like, really puts it towards the low end, and if they're, like, haughty, it puts it up towards the high end. Could make some... That's probably what I would pitch.
I mean, yeah, we could conceptually do something like where, though, the likes and dislikes, like, you have 600 net worth of likes and dislikes, you still need to get, like, a set of these things. So distribute your stuff, and it's kind of like a greedy thing where it's like, oh, like the first thing I chose is a golden armor, and it has 250 net worth. So the remaining things I'm going to choose are going to have lower net worth, which in turn means they're probably like either easier to make or lower on the scale, right?
Yeah, that's sort of what I'm pitching. Like there's different ways to get to that result, but that's sort of what I'm pitching is like it's possible. Well, and I actually kind of like it being just on 3 different distributions. It's possible to have a guy roll 3 cheap items or 3 high items. It's just like really unlikely. Especially if it's 3 things or 7 things or whatever.
Yeah, I'm torn on the goaling side of like the slow reveal because, and I'm sorry, chat. I'll catch up with you in a moment. This is just a lot to think about at one point. So I like the slow reveal because I like the idea of your town like evolving over time and like learning more about stuff. Like when we did the trait system, right now traits are static, but like I want to get to a point where like traits can come and go, or they like events can scar someone, or they can like learn something new about themselves. And so I like this idea of like, well, the things that you started the game with liking and disliking with aren't the full characterization of who you are as a person.
Yeah, you probably don't want them to change because like, well, I've put effort into making his house fit his desires.
But the idea of like, oh, there's something new I like now. Like, I like that side of it.
So I agree. My only concern with that was actually more the player incentivization side. So how those get revealed, I think we would need to talk about.
Okay.
As long as whatever we're doing is not going to make the average player who cares about like Hearthling likes and dislikes to build one of everything, that's fine. Like maybe it's like when your crafter gains the ability to make something that might they might reveal like because your blacksmith's like, oh man, I just figured out how to make this cool armor, and this guy's like, cool armor, and their eyes get really big, and you're like,
yeah. I mean,
I like cool armor.
We've talked about switching the recipe system over from like, oh, you just unlock everything when you level up to like, no, recipes are actual things that you research or that you buy or something else. And so, yeah, like I kind of like that. Yeah. It's like, oh, I got a special new recipe. Oh, now everyone in the town like suddenly loves turnips because we didn't have turnip seeds before.
Yeah, I got turnip seeds from, or like maybe it's even like if a trader shows up with something that's enough to trigger like, oh man, like yeah, I want that thing. Actually, somebody mentioned like it would be cool to have an eccentric who like was a Riot's children and just loved ascendancy wanted ascendancy furniture, and that's really cool in the story scale side of things, where it's like, how the heck am I gonna get a cathedral chair? Like, I'm in the desert. There are no cathedral chairs here.
Okay, I like that direction. Let's talk about it more. And now let's catch up with chat.
Yeah.
Yep, unlocking recipes. We love that idea.
Although not quite the like make 5 chairs. Like I don't want it to be just like a trudge through.
Yeah, I definitely don't want to do the whole like, oh, I made 100 daggers and now I've got Daedric armor. Also, Geester, yeah, we want to do that. If I scroll back up, we have item quality affecting the amount that people like things. Mally, yeah, so we were talking about updating things they like, love. We don't want to change things underneath the player strongly because you might decorate a super cool room, spend a lot of time, and then suddenly they hate it afterwards, and that would probably be frustrating. And to make certain thing, when this makes certain items just not worth it to build. Well, everything, as being proposed in the system, everything that you are building adds some amount of appeal. It would imply that there will be certain items that for a specific Hearthling won't give them value, but it's highly unlikely that like all Hearthlings will dislike the same things given the number of items that there are in the game. And if everything provides some base value, like then there should be a reason to make everything at some level. You might end up with an optimization problem of like, oh, for pound, this is the best thing to make my Hearthlings happy in terms of like a wood per appeal ratio. That's on us to balance, and I think there's not a lot of way for us to escape that particular problem without getting heavy-handed about dictating to players how they can and should.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about the we've talked a lot about the 50 birdbath problem, which is it turns out that the most efficient way to spend resources to get high appeal things is to build a bird bath. So let's just build 1 million bird baths and put them everywhere, and everyone will be super happy because appeal math works out in favor. And the problem is that all the ways that we've come up with to fix that, that are obvious fixes to that, mean that the guy who wants to build Birdbathton, where it's all birdbath themed, and it's they've actually put a lot of effort and time into making this beautiful town that has lots of these bird baths, is going to get kind of screwed over by you can only see one thing. You only can see one thing, and then you're tired of it. So still trying to navigate that, but if anything, the system will make more items worth building. Where it's hey, you can't fit any more furniture in this room, but you could put a rug underneath things. So now you have a reason to build a rug, so it'll increase the appeal score. A reason besides just it looks nice to you, the player.
Yeah. Page out Timber and Stone. I need to look into Timber and Stone because I don't know what you're actually referencing, Microlost. So I will make a note to do that. Zisco. I said Hearthling's things they like. Forget about and continue. I guess that kind of depends on how accessible the things they like are. I don't know. I don't share that concern.
No, so that's part of the reason why. It's if the appeal system were the whole game, yes, but there's so many other sort of conflating things there. Hey, they need social contacts. So if you had one guy who was in the wood quadrant and one guy who was in the stone quadrant, and they weren't allowed to leave. They want to go talk to each other, so one of them has to leave their quadrant to go talk to the other guy, and it's probably not worth building your city like that. Plus, that's sort of why we're shying away from dislike being ugh, wood. I'm depressed for the rest of the day because I saw some wood. It's just and especially I think I really like the idea of hey, this is my house and I have or my room and I have some concept of that, and the things that are in my room matter more to me, and whether it's just you continue to assess appeal while sleeping, so the things in there near their bed count for more just naturally, things like that. So it's you wouldn't build your city around certain Hearthlings' likes and dislikes, but you might build their houses around certain likes and dislikes, or build them in certain places because they like water or something. So you build it by the river. P.S. That's actually kind of a neat. Maybe certain terrain features are things they like. I like grass. I like sand. Sweet. all the Raya's children start with the I like sand.
I hate sand. It's so coarse.
Except for that one. It's
rough. It gets everywhere.
Okay, we're not prequel memes here.
Sorry. You can't talk about liking or hating sand without me quoting that. All right. So final thing I want to cover here. So preferences affect conversations. So right now the conversation system, preferences are somewhat randomly assigned when they interact with it, and there's a chance to drift as they do with things. So this is also part of the reason why I ratcheted up the things that you like and dislike, so that people could actually talk in a conversation now, and you can see they're talking about berry bushes. That guy actually likes berry bushes. Okay, well that's a clue to me that without diving into his menu, that hey, maybe if I put some berry bushes around him, or near his home.
Maybe if I trap him between 4 berry bushes, he'll be
ecstatic. So I don't know if we have enough coverage for this to work, but that is my theory of trying to push the conversation system a little bit now so that the things they talk about are actually the things that they like and dislike, because that mechanically influences stuff.
Okay, I can see that as an argument, unholding the thought for having a number of likes, but I think maybe love. Well, and if loves are revealed over the course of the game, I could see the 377 making sense. Although I might pitch 37 3 or 4, less dislikes, because everyone's happy. Everyone's happy in Stonehearth.
It all depends on how negative the negatives are. Right, at the moment where they're 0, it's
Even then, I think having fewer dislikes is better.
Maybe
it's just a more positive.
Maybe. So to fit that in, need a new display in conversations for things they love, just that slightly different. Works the same way mechanically as like two people agreeing does, but it's like now it's like a little purple icon. It's like a pink icon with a little heart over whatever it is they're saying, as opposed to just the yellow one. Preferences don't drift in this case anymore because they're attached to stuff, and Hearthling should be willing to talk about something when they see something, not only now when they interact with it directly.
Okay. Yeah, because we're keeping better track of that anyway. Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
I don't know if the static opinion stuff, again, I don't know what if the coverage will be enough. I think it might be, especially if players start incentivizing their gameplay around it, so they like, oh, this guy likes high back chairs, so I'm going to put a high back chair in his house. Cool, now when every time he goes to his home, high back chair like gets refreshed as a subject that they could talk about. So when they go out and talk to people, they'll be like, "Oh, hey, high back chairs, I love them." And someone else will be like, "What are you talking about? Stop talking about high back chairs."
Turnips. Yeah, that is sort of where my mind went, though. It's going to be kind of awkward because like people talking about things they like. I mean, maybe another way to do.
Well, they'd also be talking about things they recently interacted with.
Sure. Maybe another way to approach this is that if two Hearthlings like the same thing, they will tend to talk about it, and that's a psychic thing. It's like a psychic connection thing, but it's like it came up in conversation. Berry bushes came up, and they were both like, "Berry bushes, I love berry bushes, I love berry bushes too," and they're like they're friends.
They hug it out.
Yeah, they like bond over berry bushes. That seems kind of a neat way to show those little connections, like. If we just like preferentially tend to show those things,
maybe that's worth sticking in some waiting.
And then and if that's like that interaction is an especially positive thing, then maybe there actually is a little bit more of like, well, yeah, I'm going to put these two people I'm going to put these their two houses next to this big berry bush farm so that they both see it a lot and tend to talk to each other more.
Cool. And then the thing I need to write...
Berry Bush Appreciation Club, yes.
The thing I need to write is that there should be a collection of traits for specifically affecting appeal. So before I came into the stream, I was like, it'll be really fast to go through this document. And we can write traits at the end of the stream.
Sweet.
We're already 10 minutes over.
We started a little bit late, but I think we... Yeah.
Yeah, so... but that's kind of the remaining part I need to tackle. Any thoughts?
Some
of the stuff I'll need to sit on, and we talked about a lot of it, but
yeah, generally I think I came around to your side on a lot, or your pitch on a lot of things. Still not totally sure about the how items that you like and dislike should how that should go into the
filter
scoring.
in. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure the averaging things we talked about that before, like spoilers. We talked about that some before. I think I'm okay with that, like the formula there.
We could change it. So what we could do is we could fiddle it so it's like right now it's just purely if there's something you like or love. You suggested searching it so it's like, maybe there's like an additive impact if there are multiple things that you like or love. Like
because I would naturally want to fill the person. Yeah. If the person liked a bunch of small things, I would just fill the room. I would put them all in the room. Like
and that makes sense and potentially goes to some of the goals. I think we want to like cap that a little bit so it's not like, hey, put one of everything they like and love inside their home.
In each,
because there's going to be times where that's going to thematically mismatch, and I don't think we want to encourage thematic mismatches.
Yeah, we don't want to force players who want to play optimally to do that.
But there might be something where we could do like stacking diminishing return or like thresholded. It's like if you have 3 things and you like out of the 7, like you're happy as you can be about things liking the things you like. But
I guess having heard now how you intend to do the UI for it, like surfacing it to the player, we probably do have more room to do some kind of weird things where it caps at 3, or it is just the best object because you could show aggregate score plus X item I like bonus.
Yeah.
And it shows there's 5 items you like, but it's only plus 10. It's only plus one, only one of those bonuses. Oh, okay, I figured out that I need to spread them out through their house. So as they're traveling through their house down the hallway or whatever, like it's chained together, which is gamey, but at least not a giant pile of
you're
items
decorating
next to them.
you're decorating the entire house with stuff they like.
And then the fact that you got the thing they love and you put it in their bedroom next to their bed makes some sense. It may be a little bit weird, but that's almost like it's not the player making a weird decoration choice. It's kind of the Hearthling making where it's like, okay, I'll put a berry bush in your room. That's fine.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird, but all right. Up to you.
And Serinnerio. You are absolutely right. And that's something that we have to deal with in design all the time. There's a concept in design called framing, which is actually like a super important concept for a designer to understand. And the best way I can express it is a classic example from World of Warcraft. So in World of Warcraft, when they launched the game back 2004, 2005,
I don't remember.
Man. They had a concept of rest experience. And so the idea was that...
they had a concept of exhaustion, wasn't it?
No, it was still called rest experience.
Oh, okay.
It was still called rest experience. They didn't change the name at all. And the idea was that when you logged in and you killed things, you would get 100% experience for them. And over time...
Because you were rested.
Because you're rested,
you're fresh,
right,
you get full experience.
And then over time, as you went off and adventured... and you became more and more tired, the amount of experience you would get from killing things slowly decreased down to 50%. And then when you logged out, especially if you logged out in an inn, you would regain your rest experience. So when you logged in the next day, you'd start off fresh again, be getting 100% experience. People hated it. Like, go back and look at the initial reviews. Every single review mentioned it as one of the worst systems they had ever seen. It's terrible, horrible, bad. Design-wise, it made sense because the goal was kind of like, hey, your friend that like doesn't play as much and they're not as around as often, like we should give them something so they can still like keep up with their other friends who play all the time. But yeah, universally panned. So a few 3 to 5 months later, Blizzard did a patch to the game, and what they did is they changed it that now when you have rest experience, you get 200% of the experience you get that you get from killing monsters. And then over time, as you become more and more exhausted, that drops back down to 100%. And so ultimately, when you run out of rest experience, you're just getting 100% the normal amount of XP that you would get from all the monsters in the game. They retuned the monster experiences and the level caps so that there wasn't noticeable change, and everybody loved it. They're like, oh man, the system, if I don't play very much, I'm getting twice as much experience, which lets me stay with my friends.
I get bonus experience. It's great. I love bonus experience.
It's the best. But mechanically, exactly the same systems, right? Like going from 100% experience to 50% experience versus starting at 200% experience, dropping to 100 and then doubling the XP requirements to go up for every level, exactly mathematically the same. But the framing that it gives to players is completely different. Like one is expressed as a positive that then is slowly lost over time until they're just in their normal state. And then another one is expressed as oh, hey, you're normal now, but then slowly as you play, you're going to get worse and worse. And that shift of how it was presented is all that was needed for players to go from hating the system to loving the system. And so that's why it's so important as we're thinking through these systems, why we focus on how things are conveyed to the player and what their default reaction to something is. And why, honestly, right now in our system, we are shifting away from negatives on the impact. We're it's not like there's a bunch of really ugly things or badly made furniture makes you unhappy.
Yeah, I'm so bored with all these chairs. Oh my god, unhappy.
And more going for an approach of you're just kind of naturally okay, and then as you make better and better stuff, you make a masterwork chair or an artifact chair, then you're super happy or just really happy or something else. We could easily move the number and the baseline so it was still the same, but by starting from a place of normal is normal and then you just do better from that, players respond better to things, and that's why this is being structured as it is.
Yeah.
So Anyway, short design story, but I think that that particular concept is like, for me, a very fundamental understanding that I learned back when I started off in design, and I wanted to share it with you guys.
Yeah, and I think like Blizzard's one of Blizzard's mantras is always express it as a bonus, and you can look at a lot of the stuff they've done and see places where they've turned things on their head to make sure that they're like either you get a bonus or you get the normal thing. Never punishments, unless but yeah, you can use punishments, but only in places that they're really like well warranted. Like you said, rotten food is not normal. Rotten food is negative, but normal food is normal, not like boring.
Yeah.
And then great food is awesome.
Yeah, that's why we only have like fine chairs and like masterwork chairs. We're not creating like crummy chairs and like poorly made chairs and like.
Yeah. I think mean beds are maybe even a little bit too like.
Yeah.
Like even mean is just like.
It's mean in the archaic sense
basic.
of the word.
Yeah, it's like.
Yeah, it's not literally like gonna.
I know it's not an angry like upsetting bed.
It's very upsetting.
But still, it's like it's sort of a pejorative term for the bed. The bed's trying as best it can.
It's really trying.
It should be like a basic bed, or like a just a bed. Nothing special bed.
We should actually change the name of it to be Just a Bed.
Just a bed?
Just a bed.
That should be the first storage item, is just a box.
Just a box.
And they have better boxes.
All right. Well, I think we will call it here. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you had a good time and listening to me and Luke chat through design stuff. This is basically how design works. So, yeah, I hope it was a little bit illuminating to you guys.
One guy has ideas, and the other guy says they're bad ideas and proposes a different idea.
All right. Well, you guys have a good night,
Yep.
and I'll talk to you all in a couple weeks. Take care.
Yep. See you next time.
Bye.
Oh, wait, you're like supposed to leave it at...
Hmm?
I think you leave it at the screen for a while or something.